Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Wuthering Waves Chapter 3 Act 4 is out, and I just completed it, man. I'm here to tell you my thoughts, because I do have some thoughts about it. Some of you guys, if you like Sagrika, you probably thought this quest was awesome. A lot of you guys probably enjoyed this quest, and hey, man, that's awesome. That's great. Act 4 is quite different. It's different from what we've experienced so far, and I'm gonna get into it. But first, I gotta say it, spoilers. Duh. I will say personally, this quest was not as enjoyable as some of the quests that preceded it. But I don't think it's, overall unplayable. Like, it's not bad. I just felt like it was, it was cool. It was cool. It was all right. But I think the best way to talk about this particular act is to break it down into two sections. Things that I liked and things that I disliked, and then give an overall rating at the end of the video. And you guys can let me know what you guys agree with in the comments. I'm looking forward to reading it and just seeing how you guys experienced the quest and what you guys thought about it. Judging by my tone, you can kind of understand where I'm coming from and how I feel. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into some of the things that I liked. It was really cool seeing the characters interact with each other, connecting with Luke, Lucilla, Chisa making a return, Lene. I thought that was pretty cool that we got to see these characters, interact with these characters, and then see these characters interact with each other. It kind of gave you the feeling that, oh, okay, everybody knows everybody on campus and they're kind of connected. Regardless if they hang out all the time, they kind of, have their own friend circles or whatever. I thought that was kind of cool. And on the subject of seeing other characters, I thought it was cool seeing our party members be on the field at the same time. When we connect with Chisa, and also just us jumping monsters. Like, we was jumping these monsters like crazy. They had no chance. That was awesome. Just busting down these monsters, man. It would have been even cooler if we had, a monster that was substantial enough in terms of HP and threat to justify us being that powerful and being that, aggressive. But yeah, man, I thought this kind of new presentation of characters interacting on field was pretty cool. The new environment of Star Torch Academy with its new festive feel with balloons and stages and music instruments, thought that was cool, man. It's a vibe. The parkour and the snarro, I enjoyed that too. And when it came down to, just playing the quest, one feature I gotta praise. I'm happy they finally made this addition. So previously, there was a button to hide the HUD. And when you press the button, it only worked for like that frame or that line of dialogue, and then it stopped. And now we have a feature that kind of permanently hides the dialogue as characters talk, unless you do some type of input. And I think that's pretty cool because it just kind of like helps you to be more immersed in the story. And speaking of story, I like how they kind of took Sagrika's dilemma and overlaid it with Rover and essentially made Sagrika be an analog for Rover. Sagrika, all the weight of everybody's expectations bear down on her, and Rover feels that as well. But Rover also, understands failure as well when they think about how they couldn't save Amith.
What do you do when you can't do nothing, but there's nothing you can do?
You do what you can.
And that's what essentially Rover tries to convey to Sagrika. And that's what Rover has to tell to themselves. But while we're on the subject of the story, I think now is a great time to turn into talking more about the story and the things I disliked. I dislike how, when it came to how this story played out in terms of the pacing, how we just kind of had side stories thrust inside of the main story. Don't get me wrong, I liked having the side stories available. I liked being able to talk with Mornier and Lene. But also, it was like, why in the middle of this dilemma with Sagrika, why am I talking to Mornier? Why am I talking to Luke? Like, we're trying to solve this issue, but we're eating waffles here. What's going on? You know what I mean? It was kind of like the placement was kind of odd. And I'm happy that they have these moments. I do want them to be in the game, At the same time, I think it's odd that we have to do them to continue the main quest, especially when they're unrelated to what's going on. Now, if they're related, that's fine. But if they're unrelated to kind of what's happening, the main point of things, it's just kind of like, why are we doing this, man? You know, unless like, I don't know, Luke's waffles is going to come into play down the road in some portion of the story. You know, the Fraxidus is there trying to destroy us, and we're just like, oh, you ate those waffles, didn't you? You didn't know that Luke laced them with poison 2 weeks ago. You've been slowly dying this entire time. I don't know. But my point is, unless there's a reason for going to lunch with Lene, why is that part of the main quest? You know what I mean? It just serves no purpose. And when it comes to the story's progression, I feel like there was a disconnection with the previous story progression thus far. And when you do a retrospective and go back to Chapter 3, Act 1, you know, a lot of things were revealed. We learned more about Rover. We learned more about the Royan people. We learned more about Lahairoi, how it being a civilization underground. We learned about their new sun and their plans of installing it. And then Chapter 3, Act 2 was a continuation of that. You know, them changing out the sun, and then us learning more about the Royan people and the Exostrider. And all of this sets us up for Chapter 3, Act 3. And of course, we kind of continue to learn more. In fact, that's why so many people herald it as like the best Wuthering Waves quest thus far. And that's because, one, there was a lot of different things that went on in terms of like telling an emotional story. But beyond that, it was because it continued the story. What was going on, it continued what was happening and added on to it. You know, we learned about Rover, the Exostrider, Rover's distant past, what's going on with the world of Solaris 3, the Fraxidus, and you know, when you include the segue quest in here, you learn more about the Fraxidus, their plans, the Grand Architect. It goes in so many different directions, and we learn so many different things about the world of Solaris, our enemies, and ourselves. And then when we get to Chapter 3, Act 4, with all those different directions they could have gone in, and of course you can say that we did find the Fraxidus mole, and that's Denia. But when it comes to all of this, there were so many different directions they could have gone in to give us more information and expand on the things they've put in the quest before. And, you know, Amith is still an exoswarm. We don't know where she is. She's somewhere. But they didn't really give us an update on where she is and how she's doing. They didn't give us an update on LF1 in that situation. You know, is that getting worse? Has it gotten better? Like, is it still the same? They haven't given us any information on whether the Exostrider is waking up now. You know, what's going on with the Exostrider? There's a lot of different points that they could have kind of expanded upon that would have made the quest way more interesting. That they just kind of said, hey, we're going to just make you learn about this one character. And I know there's some people who will probably say, well, you know, there are other characters there too, and they were. And I'm happy that they were there. But overall, it was just essentially a quest about Sigrika for the most part. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know why it's a main quest. I feel like they just could have made this be a side quest, made this be a companion quest. When you go from every quest giving you something more every time to getting to a quest where you don't really get much of that, you only get a small bit, you start to notice other things that you might not have noticed before. And you notice like small pacing issues and dialogue issues. For example, we run into Chisa in the scenario. She's in a room by herself. She doesn't know we're approaching her. We run up to her, and then she turns around and she's not surprised. She's not like, oh my gosh, oh man, you guys scared the bejesus out of me. Or she's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you guys are here, man. You know, I'm so glad to see you guys here at this time. No, she just says, hello. Like, what? Why? That doesn't seem to fit at all. You know what I mean? Another point is Sigrika talking to this machine where she's getting a tip for the scenario. And she wants to interrupt the machine while it's giving its introductory phrase and tells it, just give me the tip. you know? And when she's doing this, there's a gap in between when she interrupts them and when the dialogue for the machine stops talking. And it just feels odd. At first I was like, wait, what happened? And I was like, oh, she was supposed to be interrupting it because the interruption was so delayed from when it was supposed to happen. But yeah, I don't think I would have noticed that or some of these other things if I was overall enjoying the flow of the quest. But if I had to rate this story and tell how I feel about everything thus far in this story, I'd have to rate it on 4 things, one of them being presentation. And when I say presentation, I'm meaning the visuals, the set design, how the characters talk to each other, the voice acting, the environments, all of that. I'd rate that as a 9. Next point is intelligence. When it comes to the information that we received, the new information that propels the plot forward, I'd rate that a 2. We didn't really get much information. I mean, we know Denny is a part of the Fraxidus, okay, but not much else in the grand scheme of things, okay? We did learn different stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, sure, they can make something relevant if they want to, right? You can always make something relevant, like the tips that we got from the cards. They could be like, these cards actually hold mystical powers. They could actually do that. But based off of what has been given to us so far, there really wasn't much continuation on those important points. When it comes to gameplay, there really wasn't much of it, and so I had to rate that a 5. We got some mobs that we fought inside the Sonaro world. There was also some parkour here and there, but for the most part, we were just standing around talking to characters. When it comes to pacing, I talked about some of the issues of pacing before, how we had to come in and play other quests during the quest, some lines of dialogue here and there, but otherwise, it was pretty cool. I'd give it a 4. And with these numbers combined, it gives an overall rating of 5 out of 10. I think the grand takeaway for this quest is that it's okay to have companion quests. It's okay for a companion quest to exist. If there's not enough content, if there's not enough information, if the story development for the next act just isn't ready, we could just have a companion quest. That's cool, man. We'll still enjoy it, but I think the expectation will overall be lower because it's a companion quest. Whereas if you tell me it's a main quest, my expectation is that it's going to be some continuation of what we've done thus far. This quest is, if you can imagine watching Breaking Bad and Jesse and Walter had just cooked up some stuff and they met Tuco. Jesse gets beat up, and then the next episode is Skylar's day at the mall. It's like, what? Why is that the continuation? Or if you're watching Dragon Ball Z and it's the Saiyan saga and there's Goku versus Vegeta and they're going head to head, and the next episode is Yajirobe and Oolong fight over their meal. It's like, okay, I mean, this story can exist, but why would it exist at a moment where we're enjoying and we're kind of, things are happening. Things are already happening. You've inserted something that is not a continuation of the things that have already been happening. It just doesn't fit. It's not a match. It's a mismatch. It's disjointed. It doesn't work. It's a side story, and there's nothing wrong with side stories, but side stories are not the same as the main story. There's a reason why when people watch, I keep bringing up Breaking Bad, but it's a show I liked. It's a reason why the worst episode, the episode that everybody hated the most, was an episode where they focused on a fly. The entire episode was about a fly. People hated that episode because they're like, there's so much going on. There's so many different plot points. There's so many different story elements. There's so many different characters that connect to what's going on. And you chose to focus on a fly for an entire episode. And so that's essentially what this act feels like. But let me know what you guys think. I'm pretty sure, there's a diverse array of opinions out there. Some of you guys might agree with me, and some of you guys may not. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think of this quest as well. But as for me, that's all I got for you. I'll catch you in the waves. Peace.